Good morning. This is the first episode of Jeff Pone and myself on our Chicago Boys Talk Sports.
Good morning, Mr. Siskind.
Thank you. Good morning,
Good
Jeff.
morning, everyone. Thank you for attending.
And the idea of this is going to be that Jeff and I, as veteran watchers of Chicago sports, have astute notions about the present and the history of Chicago sports, and we want to share them with the world. Um, Today, we're going to do, as an introductory episode, we're going to talk about the background of Chicago professional sports in general. We're going to talk about what's going on with it now, and we'll see where that leads. I was Jeff's high school teacher. And I also have a kind of a low-level background in sports as a player and as a coach. So that's the perspective that I'm going to bring to it. Jeff, why don't you say a little bit about your perspective?
Okay, this is a bit of a walk down memory lane, but I'll try to be brief. As a little boy, I was a jock. I just loved sports. The interesting thing was my father was sort of MIA. So our family had a black housekeeper who pretty much raised me. She taught me how to play sports. And when I was 5 years old, she started taking me to Chicago White Sox games on the south side of Chicago. We lived on the north side of Chicago, which was Chicago Cubs territory. So I became a Chicago White Sox fan, which also made me into the enemy of all the other children in my neighborhood. I was a Sox fan and I was proud of it. And they would harass me, throw stones at me, call me names. Um, but uh, Next for me, my parents were divorced. And my dad, on the weekends, on the Sundays, would take me to Chicago Bears games when I was about 6 years old. Um, they were at Wrigley Field where the Cubs played. And my dad was an interesting cat. And he would put a medical bag on the dashboard, which he then used to get the kind of parking space that he could get out of very quickly at the end of a game.
Yeah, in case there's a medical emergency.
Right. And we would sit in frigid Wrigley Field, and my dad had a flask of whiskey to warm us up. And he would share that with me, and I didn't like the taste, but I sure did like the effect. So that started a long history for me of alcohol enjoyment.
Did you
And
have season tickets at Wrigley Field?
no, didn't have season tickets.
Okay, so he would buy a ticket at,
Yeah, he would procure tickets, and they were usually
yeah.
pretty good.
Well, that was a characteristic of when I also went to Wrigley Field for football games starting when I was 4 years old. And what you underwent there was something that was going on a real lot, which was people in the stands watching a game and having a couple of drinks, maybe
Yep.
more than a couple.
Yep.
And and that was all part of it. I want to say that what you talked about with Emma and taking you to the South Side and then what happened to you when you got back to the North Side. That's a basic fact of Chicago, that there's the North Side and there's the South Side. And that within the North Side and the South Side there's subcategory of close to the lake or far from the lake.
Uh-huh.
And but the North Side and the South Side in Chicago, people have to understand that that's a basic division of the city.
It's like
And
the Civil War, the North and the
yeah,
South.
it really is. And although there are areas of the North Side that are kind of like the South Side, um, it's very, very different. I remember when Bill Horberg, our friend Bill Horberg, and I, um, and our my future wife and his girlfriend at the time, I think she was, we went to the south side to go bowling, and people were taunting us. Uh,
Right, of course,
you're from, the north side, they don't even know how to bowl. They said, I remember somebody saying, we don't even know how to bowl.
which is probably accurate, but go.
No, I can bowl, man. And 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 the Bill's friend, they had a young kid, and oh, look at the kid is dressed up like a hippie, they said. So that was our experience on the south side. Um,
Yeah, and I was an early casualty of that divide. Uh, and but I did become a lifelong Bear fan, as well as what my loyalty was just insane. I don't even understand it.
yeah,
But you mentioned hippie, when I was in my teens and early 20s, I really drifted from Chicago sports because I became a hippie and I was into drugs and had really long hair, and sports just wasn't cool.
yeah.
Now, I did return many years later, and one of the main reasons I returned was the appearance of Michael Jordan. And I became a massive Bulls fan.
And you've watched every game since he
When
appeared,
when the Bulls, let me get this right, 60 years ago, when the Bulls became a franchise in Chicago, I started watching, not casually. I would sit inches from the television. I would write down every point and rebound the guys got, and and so I never missed a game. They were televised in Chicago, and the last many years that I've lived in Los Angeles, I've been able to get the season package,
yeah,
which is a cable thing where you can get every
sure,
single game, and I've watched every single game. Also, have watched every single Bear game without fail. And a few years ago, I got the Chicago Blackhawks hockey. So this is an obsession.
yeah.
And Mitch, I think I understand what the obsession is for me. And, when I was growing up, my family life was extremely tumultuous. And I found Chicago sports watching to be, you know, uh,
An
a
escape.
retreat, an
Yeah,
escape. And many years later, I also found drugs and alcohol to be an escape. Combined, they were amazing. I never had to feel anything.
yeah. I think
Yeah,
that's a fairly widespread in
yeah,
different degrees that
yeah. Mine
people.
is extreme and it's fine. I
Right.
accept it, enjoy it. I don't think it hurts anyone. Perhaps it hurts me. I don't know. I don't feel the effects, any negative effects.
Yeah.
And, you know, um,
Also, the fact that now you've lived for a long time in LA, as I have,
yeah.
we still feel connected to
Well,
Chicago.
Mitch, I have to tell you, when I moved to LA, I think I was in my early 20s to go to film school. And I made an actual effort to become an LA fan. And it made sense. They had the Lakers, they had the Dodgers,
Yeah,
they had the Rams. Their teams were terrific. And
yeah,
Chicago teams were not as reliably excellent.
absolutely not.
I tried. I couldn't. I couldn't. Something in me would not allow me to betray the Chicago sports team.
Well, see, Los Angeles is very different from Chicago because Los Angeles teams have become dynasties. And whereas Chicago teams, although they've had some really successful short-term teams, again, excluding the Bulls, but the Bears have had, they had a Super Bowl team. The
80s,
White Sox had a arguably one of the best teams in baseball history that
you
won
mean
the
in
World Series.
2005?
Yeah, 2005. That was a team that was great. The Chicago Cubs had the 2016 team.
Yep.
All those teams failed to sustain it. They and we can talk about why that is and what that means to be a Chicago fan.
Well, Chicago fans are great fans. I mean, the idea that the Chicago Bulls, who've been completely mediocre for at least 10 years,
Right.
have the best attendance in the NBA is kind of remarkable. But I will tell you, as a Chicago fan who knows a lot of Chicago fans are starving. They're starving for winners. Now, I would argue that there have been two dynasties since I've been alive. One was the Chicago Bulls in the late 80s and early 90s,
Right.
the Michael Jordan Chicago Bulls.
Right.
Six championships in
Right.
8 years, seven, whatever.
Yeah.
Also, the Chicago Blackhawks did a rather amazing thing that could have us consider them a dynasty in that they won 3 years out of 6 years, they won Stanley Cup, which
Yeah.
is kind of unheard of. But for quite a while now, it's, fans, Chicago sports fans can only be called long suffering.
Yeah, long suffering. And I think one thing we can look at is I think they're so used to that it's hard for them to connect with the idea that they're going to have dynasties. I mean, um, that team of the 2005 White Sox. First of all, there are many things about that team that were unusual. They were in first place. They never left first place the entire season. They went through the playoffs. I think they lost one game in the whole playoff thing. Um, they've swept the World Series, I believe, and it was an unbelievable team. The 2016 Chicago Cubs was also a great team. Um, they had several long winning streaks. They won the World Series after the rain delay. We can talk about that, and then they wrecked themselves starting the next year, in my
Yeah.
opinion, by trading the leadoff man. That was the end when they traded the leadoff man. I think his name was Foster. They traded him to St. Louis.
It's hard for me to know because I'm so focused on the White Sox.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
even when the Cubs won, I didn't really care.
yeah. Well, but they
Blasphemy.
yeah they wrecked the team, and it's trying to come back now. We'll see what happens. Um, the Chicago Bears. They had a fantastic team, 85. They got distracted by doing their dance and opening restaurants and Mike Ditka and all that. That wrecked the team.
The Super Bowl
The
shuffle.
Super Bowl shuffle, that
That was
that was
the Bears dancing.
yeah,
By the way,
that
Walter Payton was a world-class dancer.
absolutely. And one of
Found
the biggest
American
mistakes,
bands.
the biggest mistake I ever made was not was starting to look at dancing as a femmy thing and turning away from dancing. I couldn't be a football player if I danced, and nobody clued me into these great football players were great dancers. Um, that cost me a lot.
Interesting. I mean, personally, it cost you.
It cost me a lot personally.
Wow, that's
Uh,
interesting.
Yeah,
I mean,
Walter Payton was a nationally recognized. They would have dance contests and stuff, and
yeah, he was on American Bandstand when he was not Walter Payton yet.
right,
Danced, it was like Fred Astaire.
yeah. Well, he
Uh,
was he was another great character because he was uh, the best player on a bad team for many years, and
yeah,
then tragically, when they got to be good, I think Ditka failing to make a touchdown in the Super Bowl was a
Well,
catastrophe. And
yeah, what happened, what Ditka, who was a good coach, although a real nut, um, dissed Walter Payton. Walter Payton was still a decent running back.
oh
He was
yeah,
downside of his career.
sure,
Once again, we've talked about ageism. The guy was washed up at 31.
right,
I mean, I complain, you
yeah,
know, but anyway, he dissed him. And the Bears crushed the New England Patriots. And they had an opportunity for a touchdown late in the game. They were on the 2 yard line. The ball should have gone to Walter Payton.
sure,
Everybody was crying out for it. Ditka gave the football to William the Refrigerator Perry,
right,
a lineman, to score the touchdown.
right.
You're right. It was a
Well,
catastrophe.
what had happened there was, if you look at the video of it, I think Peyton got the ball a couple of times in that setting near the goal line, and he didn't get it in. And then when it was third or fourth down, he gave it to Perry. Um, but I think Ditka maybe had some kind of resentment of Peyton or something. He wanted to,
Well, I think it's about ego. And
right, it's about
he had a
ego.
giant ego, and he loved to be looked at,
That's right.
loved attention. So
Yeah.
here he is, coach of this team. I mean, even Saturday Night Live, if you remember, was doing the Bears.
Yeah.
And anyway, but here's this other guy, Walter Payton, uh, thought to be one of the greatest running backs of all time. He was amazing. And my guess, I can't be sure about this, is that Ditka was threatened by this guy.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So
And
he
the
dissed
thing,
him. He disrespected him. And
yeah,
the key moment in time when Walter needed to get his flowers
right. That's
and
right.
was denied his flowers and denied respect.
That's right.
That was not a good move on Ditka's part.
No, it was bad also for the future of the team.
Yep.
And it was a little bit like one of the classic things of all time in pro football was when and it's hard to imagine this actually happened, was when the Seattle Seahawks had the ball on 1 yard line and they had Marshawn Lynch. And okay,
And threw an
we're gonna
interception, right?
give the ball to Marshawn Lynch and we're gonna win the Super Bowl. And then they tried to throw a pass.
And it was intercepted.
Yeah, it was unbelievable.
They
And
lost.
yeah, unbelievable.
It was one of the most major chokes I've ever seen.
Well, it was more than a choke because it was a conscious decision on the part of somebody
Right.
to do that. And Marshawn Lynch talked about how subsequently, like years later, he had a meeting with Pete Carroll, who was the coach, and he said, Pete, I got to tell you how important that was to the team, to the city, to me personally. We could have had a dynasty, and that wrecked it.
Yep.
And because I've had meetings with guys who were NFL coaches, and they're like regular guys. They don't, we can talk about football and how the coaches think and all this, but they're not supermen and and they
Right.
can be, and in particular Ditka he was perfect for Chicago.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, but Buddy Ryan was really the coach.
Oh, Buddy
And,
Ryan, the
yeah.
defensive coach. Yeah,
Oh no, he
he's the
was.
one the players loved.
Oh yeah, he was terrific. And I have Buddy Ryan also raised racehorses,
Right.
and I met a guy who was a college player, and he was recruited by University of Buffalo when Buddy Ryan was coach at the University of Buffalo, and he didn't go to Buffalo. He chose not to go to Buffalo. But looking back on it, he could see how he was treated like a horse. That Buddy Ryan interviewed him, and he was like pinching pinching him.
Did he open his mouth and check
It,
his teeth?
No, but he asked him to do a funny thing. He asked him to walk around in a circle so he could see how but he was a good coach.
Oh, he's a great coach,
Yeah.
brilliant coach.
Yeah.
And
It was actually a good setting for him because he wasn't successful as a head coach in the
no,
NFL.
no,
But
he was a defensive specialist.
that's right. That's right.
Yeah,
That's right.
yeah.
Uh, well, we'll
Well,
see.
I mean, the, so the Bears have been mediocre for a long time, and I've been very critical. But they made one really important move, and this surprised me because the Bears are family owned. They're not owned by a mega billionaire.
None of them
Like
are. Well, they
some,
are. They're owned by mega billionaires, but they're
but I'm saying many of the NFL franchises are
right,
owned. So
right,
money isn't an issue.
right,
It's an issue with the Bears.
right,
Are known to be cheap.
right,
And this also explains why this family is willing to entertain the idea of moving the Bears to Indiana.
right.
Uh, that somebody called it the Hammond Hams, not the Chicago Bears.
Yeah,
It's an outrageous idea, a huge betrayal, but it's all about money. But what I was saying, I was very shocked. They made an extraordinary move when before last season they hired Ben Johnson, who was
right,
a specialist in the Detroit Lions on offense.
right.
Buddy Ryan was defense. And they hired Ben Johnson, and he completely revamped the team, the thinking about winning, the personnel, and suddenly the Bears
Well, they also got Caleb
one play
Williamson.
away from the Super Bowl.
He came to Chicago because he wanted to develop Caleb Williams.
Right,
And
Caleb Williams,
Ben Johnson's a good coach, and
great coach.
the relationship between him and Williams is going to determine the future of the team.
That's it.
Um,
And Williams loves him.
right,
And Ben Johnson is very tough on Williams,
right,
personally and publicly.
right,
Like he'll say, Ben Johnson will be quoted as saying things like, Caleb's got a long way to go.
right,
He's got the tools, but man, here's where he screws up,
right.
And Caleb Williams digs it.
Yeah. Well, we'll see what happens. Let me say one other thing about the ham and hams
Yeah,
is that one of the geopolitical things that's going on in Chicago for a long time is how are we going to develop the South Side? And uh, it would, I, I think they wanted to see a stadium on the South Side because that would develop the South Side in a way that it's never been developed.
it
Okay,
would be.
that fell through. I think there was a plan to build a stadium on the South Side.
I don't know why it fell through. It
Well,
must have had to do with money and politics.
that's right. And if there's a reason beyond scoring touchdowns for having a stadium in Hammond, Indiana, is they think that this will open up that area of the city and the country in a way that it has never been opened up before.
Right.
Um, it won't. It's a big mistake.
It's a
And
huge
like
mistake.
one of the things that's gone on in Chicago for a long time is are we going to build an airport on the far south side, even in northern Indiana, just like the stadium?
Yeah.
That will bring this all to life. It will bring Gary, Indiana will become a major,
Wonderful.
and I think
Build the airport and leave the Bears alone. You know.
well, they've never been able to do it. And I don't think that, I hope they're not going to be able to do this because it'll be a catastrophe. You're not going to get 50,000 people from the northern suburbs to drive down to
No.
Hammond, Indiana
No.
to watch a football game.
And right now, the only option, which is somewhat feeble, is moving the Bears to Arlington Heights.
Well,
That's
I
still
think
in Illinois.
yeah, that's a lot better than moving them to
It
Hammond.
is.
Yeah,
But politics is the problem. And
right,
again, money.
right.
The Bears, the Palace family, the
Yeah,
family that owns the Bears, wants to cash in, and Indiana is throwing money at them.
yeah, yeah.
The family would make a tremendous amount of money, and the Bears would lose a lot of fans.
It moves a tremendous amount of fans, and it's not at all like New York because McCaskey, who's the spokesperson for the family now that the old lady died,
Yeah.
he said the main thing is we have to have a winning team. If we have a winning team, people will go there. And it's like in New York. They play in New Jersey, but it's not like in New York because what's like in New York would be like Arlington Heights. But this is completely different. This is completely different. Um, well,
Yeah.
we'll see what happens. But we haven't really talked about the teams and the dynasty issue. Maybe we'll take that up next time.
Yeah, I mean, I think both of us have a lot to say.
Yes, yes.
Between the two of us, I'm just guessing we definitely have over 100 years of fandom,
That's right.
of love and attachment and obsession, in my case,
That's right.
the Chicago sports team. So we got a lot to say. Hopefully, people out there will be interested,
That's right.
will subscribe to us and the show, and will weigh in,
Yeah,
comments.
right.
We're
And
open to
and
comments and criticism.
that's right. And um we hope that uh the viewers will come to enjoy what the tone of this is going to be because it's going to be just us talking about it from a somewhat knowledgeable point of view.
And a
And
passion point of
yeah,
view.
and I think it'll be a little bit different than what they get um, on other sports talk
Yeah,
shows.
that's the goal. That's
So,
the mission.
okay, so very
Bear
good.
down.
Bear down, and we'll talk soon.
All right,
Thank
Mitch. It's
you.
been a
Bye.
pleasure. Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye.
Bye.